Hey, it's Jason Creel. I had a subscriber recently ask some specific questions, wanting more information about weed control and fertilization as compared to mowing. And so, one question he asked, basically what are the advantages and disadvantages of lawn mowing versus fertilization weed control business? And I think I've touched on this in another video, but let me perhaps go in a little more detail. I think the biggest advantage of the weed control business and fertilizer as opposed to just mowing business is that it's truly a year-round business. At least here in Alabama, when you're mowing, you can help make it more of a year-round business by getting 12-month contracts, whether from a high-end residential customer or commercial customers. You can also come up with other types of work to do in the winter, whether you live up north and you do more snow work, or down south maybe you get into leaf cleanup and other types of things that you can generate income. But it's still not that, maybe unless you just live in South Florida or where it stays warm year round, where it's just a year round, not a whole lot of change in the action, and I think that consistency is a big advantage of the weed control and fertilization, because it's my program 6 times a year, and it's just sort of clockwork through the calendar year, so there's no real break in the action, and where that helps not only financially and with your cash flow, but also just with employees. As you build a bigger business and you have employees, sometimes it becomes a question what to do with them if you don't have enough winter work. Do you have to decrease your staff and then try to hire some back in the spring? So there's some big advantages of having a year-round business. So that's one. Now the disadvantage of that is maybe if you like time off in the winter, you don't have as much time off in the winter. So, but from a strictly business standpoint, it's an advantage. So, I think that's probably, in my mind, the biggest advantage. The other advantage, I do think the profit margins are a little better typically. So, I'm not sure why. I don't think they always have to be, but in general, one person can generate a lot more revenue in a year or in a day doing weed control and fertilization than they could mowing lawns. So I think the biggest disadvantage that I can see in weed control and fertilization as opposed to mowing is it just takes longer to build the business. What I mean by that is you need a lot more customers. Let me give you an example. My business started in January. It's real slow in January. Grass is dormant. Nobody's thinking about their lawn. So it's kind of March really before my phone started ringing a lot. Now I'm up to around 90 customers here in June, which I think is, I'm happy with that, how it's going. But the truth is that I need a lot more than 90 customers to generate the kind of income that I would like to, because I'm treating people's yards 6 times a year, where if I was mowing their yard maybe 20 times a year, it takes a lot less customers. So anyway, I'm only billing that customer every other month, or if you're mowing them, you may mow their grass weekly or at least bi-weekly, for most people. So you get the point. It takes a lot more customers, so it takes a lot longer to build up your business. So I think that's a big disadvantage, and vice versa. That'd be a big advantage of mowing, is that, hey, if you have 40 or 50 customers, you're in business, and it's feasible that you could go from 0 to keeping you busy full time in 1 year, where in the spraying, I could probably have 300 or 400 customers before I would necessarily need to hire someone, and it's just not really. I'm not saying you couldn't do it, but that would be quite an achievement to get that many in 1 year. So he's talking about, we mentioned profit margins, simplicity. I think mowing is a simpler business, because there's a lot to learn in the spraying side. You know, what can you spray on this type of grass that you can't spray on this type of grass, and maybe you can spray it on this type of grass only during a certain time of the year, and then once it gets this time of year you can't spray it anymore. You know, so I mean, it's a, you know, and of course, how many types of weeds are there? You know, a ton. So there's so much to learn. It's not, you know, I think a lot of the customers think that there's one magic, you know, product we put in the tank and go spray their yard and all their weeds will be gone. And it's a whole lot more complicated than that, as far as what you have to use to kill this particular weed, but may not affect that particular weed at all. So you have to use a different product on that. So I mean, there is a lot to learn, and so in a sense that's a disadvantage, but in another sense I think that weeds out a lot of the competition, and you do see a lot less competition in the spraying side, though the competitors are typically bigger competitors and may have larger budgets. Where in mowing, you know, maybe there's 100 other lawn businesses in a particular town, but I mean, honestly, they're not all like real competitors, you know. So there's probably, at least I'm going from my own experience in the town I was in, there were 2 or 3 sure enough big dogs, and they're the ones that got almost all the big commercial accounts. There was a ton of guys, you know, just 1 or 2 guys in a trailer and a mower, you know. So, and some of them were doing good, but a lot of them, you know, not really. So you know what I'm saying? We're in the spraying, you got some pretty big companies out there that are spraying, and they have budgets, and when you get stuff on your door and in your mailbox, a lot of times it's from the spraying companies. So the other thing you mentioned, weather problems. How would you compare how the weather is a factor in the mowing business versus spraying? I would give a slight edge as far as just weather goes to the spraying business, because here's why. If, say, it pours down rain tonight and I wake up tomorrow morning and it's too wet to mow grass because it's just soaked, you know, the ground's a little soggy, and you don't want to put tracks in somebody's yard, or, you know, leave a tire mark when you zero turn in somebody's yard. So anyway, but it doesn't matter when you're spraying. I mean, you know, you maybe not want to spray in standing water, but the ground can be really wet and you can still spray or put out fertilizer. So you know, I think the weather, it would be a slight advantage to the spraying business. So anyway, these are some of the advantages and disadvantages, just based off this guy's question. I don't pretend to know them all. Like I said, I think there's advantages to both. I think you can definitely make good money doing either one. Some people do both, and so, but either one can make a good living. Like I said, you can get a mowing business off the ground quicker. Long term, I think the spraying may have higher profit margins. So, you know, I think one other advantage I wanted to hint on, like I said, if you're trying to grow your business, both are hard work, and I thought the mowing was significantly harder work until I started using this push spreader up steep hills, and I thought that's hard work too. So both are hard work, though I do think the mowing is perhaps a little bit harder on you physically. So I think the spraying may lend itself to, as you get older, you know, I'm not saying you can't continue to mow, but it may be a little less strenuous on your body, and because you're able to generate a little higher revenues and higher profit margins, it may allow you to pay an employee a little higher and perhaps get a little better quality employee. You know, when you can offer them a job that pays a little better, requires a little bit more knowledge and skill set, but is year-round, you know, maybe that attracts a little better quality employee. So anyway, these advantages and disadvantages, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments sections. Perhaps you've thought of advantages and disadvantages that I have not thought of. Thank you for your time.